I'm streaming live. Should be streaming on YouTube also. Let me make sure. But happy Tuesday night. So, what up, Crystal join? Let's see if anyone from YouTube joins in. Hopefully, we should be streaming. Hopefully, get some guests. Talk about God, talk about the Bible, talk about Jesus, who died and rose again, crucified, resurrected. First day of the week, resurrected. Trying to make sure the audio is okay. But how y'all doing tonight? You can join. We'll put the Bible verses up on the screen. Got a lot of good information. We're trying to convince individuals of the truth. Usually don't get a lot of streamers late at night using this, but we'll see how it goes. Let's see. Nice. Brent, what up, Brent? Yeah, I wanted to come on, see if I can get some individuals joining in a conversation. We could have good conversation. I'll still be live in the morning. Just wanted to jump on tonight, see if we get some guests using this app. Some live guests. Hopefully. You know, a lot of people say a lot of different stuff, but we got one book. And I could pull the Bible verses up too if y'all are interested in seeing the Bible verses. A lot of individuals think that you don't need to be baptized, but according to the Bible, you do. You know, they said, "What shall we do?" And what did Peter respond? "Repent, be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the remission of sins." If you want to be forgiven, you have to be baptized. I mean, you have to, according to what they taught. There's not a lot of wiggle room, right? There's not a lot of wiggle room. We were taught what to do, and we have that information. And what are you going to do with it? So, let me see. I think that's all the way zoomed out. All y'all watching, you can hit the request button. Come on up. If you have any questions or comments, you're more than welcome to. You know, streaming live on my phone would get me more viewers for sure on TikTok. But I like the moving background. I like being able to show the Bible verses. Audio is echoing or doubled. Is it? Let's see. Hey, stick around because I need your help. Tell me, is it still? Is it still right now? Even right now? Is it better? It's still double right now? Same? Okay, hold on. Hang out with me for a second so that way you can help me. What about now? Is it better now? What about now? Is it still doubled? Still double? This happened last time too. But what about now? But then I don't think you'd be able to hear any guests if the guests come on. It's perfect now. Nah, I'm good. Yeah, so I wonder though, if I get guests, that's where we might run into some issues. So hopefully y'all are having a nice night. You know, we got the Bible. A lot of individuals on TikTok talk like they know the Bible. If you guys want to join on YouTube, I stream live at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do live studies, study the book of Acts. So if you guys want to join some live interaction Bible studies where your chat shows up on screen, I'd recommend doing that. Join 6 a.m. You can be my guest, just talk through text. I'm using TikTok Studio for this. And I'm streaming to YouTube through OBS. But in the morning for my Bible studies, I use just OBS. I don't use TikTok. We got a guest. Hey, Steven, I might need your help real quick to see if the chat can hear you or if I can hear you. So if you might want to help me out for a second. Uh, can you hear me, Stephen?
Yes.
Okay, you can. Can everyone else hear Stephen? I guess try to say something, Stephen. Say what's up. Just make sure.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Can't hear the guest. Okay, this happened. If you'll help me, Stephen, it'll only take maybe like 2 minutes. This happened last time. I'm so sorry, but I would appreciate your help if you could help me. Let's see, because then when I do this, it's double. Like when you hear me, Stephen, is it double?
No.
It's not. For the other people, it is though.
Yeah, I'm just. You can hear me, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Can you say something? See if I can hear you now.
Yeah. Do you remember what animal lays down with the lamb in the Bible?
Stephen, we already had this conversation a bunch of times, and can I actually show you? Can I prove you that where they get it from, that the lion lays down with the lamb? Can I prove that to you?
Yeah, but it's the wolf now.
No, but can I show you where they actually get that, the lion and the lamb? Because that verse which says the wolf and the lamb, it actually says that's where they get it from. It mentions a lion in that passage.
No, I'm trying to tell you that.
I know you say the Bible has been supernaturally changed. We heard it at least 3 times from you. But I'll show you that verse actually mentions the lion in that
No,
passage.
but he's eating straw with a cow. See, the whole verse was rewritten supernaturally.
I know. We went over this like 3 times with you. But that verse actually mentions the lion. That's where they get it.
No, where it says the wolf shall dwell with the lamb,
It mentions the lion.
It used to say the lion shall lay down with the lamb.
It doesn't. It just has a lion in the passage.
No.
And that's where people get it.
Can you call up your laptop on the big screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to. My internet for some reason isn't working either, so I don't know what's going on right now with
Okay, but I have to let you know this Jesus that you're talking about. This Jesus
it's Isaiah 11:6.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll show you. It says the lion in that verse. That's where they get it from.
No, I'm trying to tell you that the whole verse was rewritten.
No, it wasn't though, because the reason they get it from the lamb, because look, it says right here, the wolf will live with the lamb. You see how it says that? But then look what it says. And the lion together. That's where they get it, because the verse mentions
but
a lion.
The lion is not laying down with anyone.
It pictures the lion with the calf, and together there is pictured also the leopard, the wolf, and the goat.
No, what I'm saying is, you know where it says the wolf will live with the lamb? I'm saying that used to say the lion shall lay down with the lamb.
All right, Stephen, I'm sorry. I'm not just gonna. I can't continue this conversation.
Can you Google Isaiah?
Yeah, we already had that conversation a bunch of times. Yeah, can I turn off my effects? Pray for USA. You said you'll come up and help me with it. That would be awesome. What up?
Hey, what's up, man?
Not
so
much.
I think I know it. Oh, my bad. I think I know what's going on. The mic you're using, you're plugged into an interface, right? Like through an XLR cable?
Yeah.
And then what interface are you plugged into? Like, does it have, for instance, what I'm looking for is there a knob on there that has like a monitor volume?
Yeah, what about now? Is that better?
Well, now that I'm up here, I won't know if you're doubling or not.
That's right. Yeah, it had for the regular speaker volume up a little bit.
Yeah, so I think what's happening is the audio that you're hearing in your headphones, we can hear, and that's how we hear the guest. But you have a monitor on, so you can also hear yourself talking in your headphones. And so we hear the audio from your mic and your monitor sound in your headphones, and that's the doubling effect. So if you turn down your monitor volume so you won't be able to really hear your voice in your headphones, that should fix the problem.
Okay,
Does that make sense, or is that too confusing? Sorry.
No, that makes 100% sense. It says in the settings, audio monitoring, use headphones to hear how you sound to viewers. Let's see if I turn that off.
Yeah, okay. Testing, 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 testing. Hmm. So you should only see, so when you should only see your input go up when you're speaking, and then your output go up when I'm speaking. They shouldn't be going, your output shouldn't go up when both of us are speaking. Just me.
Okay, I think I know what the problem was. The problem was because in OBS, when I'm streaming through OBS, when I do that, then it actually only captures the guest from TikTok Studio, and it doesn't capture my microphone.
There, okay, yeah. So that's all it was, I think. It sounds like someone says it's not echoing anymore. Is it fixed? Can you hear me and him without an echo?
Yeah, I can hear you, and I think that actually works perfect because what I did in OBS now is I just added my microphone as another plugin, so that way I have the audio from the guest coming through TikTok Studio to OBS, and then I have my microphone in OBS. So I think we should be good now. So I appreciate that. That's
Cool.
some good. How'd you know that? Are you also involved in streaming and stuff?
Yeah, I'm a voiceover. That's what I do for my job. So like I always use like microphones and interfaces and stuff. So I figured that's what was happening with you.
Nice. What kind of stuff do you do?
Books and commercials, online ads, different whatever people need, corporate trainings, whatever people need a voice for.
That's cool. Do you have a YouTube channel?
No.
Oh man, you got to get one of those.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, usually I do it a different way.
There's because I know this is a Bible thing. Have you ever heard in your community of a church called the Church of Christ?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a member of the Church of Christ, and there's actually he's a preacher in the Church of Christ, and his name's Jonathan Sanford. Have you ever heard of him?
I have not.
He is the voice for the Houston Rockets, and he said he used to be the voice for the Antonio Spurs.
That's awesome. That's a big job.
Right. And so yeah, man, that's cool because I watch some YouTube videos and they do voiceovers, and maybe I'll have to hit you up because see, maybe you could send me some of your work. I have a few books that I created that are the first ever of their kind. Like if you check my TikTok shop, I created the first ever color-coded harmony of the Gospels. So are you involved in religious stuff, or you just searching through your stuff and came across this religious video?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm involved in, I like listening to all the different dialogues on TikTok Live with different denominations, kind of going back and forth with what they believe and just seeing like, I don't know, I find that interesting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know when I stream through TikTok Studio, I'm able to use like a moving background. But when I go through my phone, usually we get like anywhere between like 50 to 80 guests on average. But now it's only like 10 because you're going through the TikTok Studio. It promotes it a lot less.
Yeah, I think they want your phone. It's kind of lame, right? If it's a good stream, it should go big regardless of what, platform you're using.
Right. And then I see in the politics, though, I think they have I've seen some individuals like atheists, and they have moving backgrounds and they get a lot of views on theirs. They get a lot of guests, a lot of views. And I seen some podcasts, like I think they have famous individual, not famous, but like popular on TikTok, promoted who they use microphones and they're wearing the headphones. So I'm supposing that they're going through TikTok Studio unless they have it connected to their phone.
Have you how many times have you gone live with this setup that's not the phone? Is this your second time?
Probably like my third or fourth.
Did you have the echo each time? Because that would probably push a lot of viewers away.
Oh, you're right, because when you first started.
Yeah, if there's like an echo. And another thing is where your face is right now is where all the text is for the chat.
Oh.
So if you moved your face up or to this, yeah, there you go. So like, I think that might be more personal too. People might connect more.
Oh man, you know what? That's cool. I wish that yeah, you're a good friend to have. I'll tell you what, even just very helpful.
Yeah, hit me up whenever.
All right, and let me see. Let me make sure. I don't know on here how to hit the follow button on the computer. If you could hit the follow button so that way I can follow you back, and then that way I could just send you some messages because it'd be cool to connect. I'd be interested in seeing some of your work if you have any.
Yeah, I just followed you.
All right, cool. And then once I figure out how to do this, there it is. I just was able to follow you back. Right on, man. Well, I appreciate it. Do you have any questions like on the perspective? Because I have the Bible verses. I'm able to pull them up. do you have any questions or something like you're like, man, I've never found an answer for this, and something I might be able to help with maybe?
Not really. I just wanted to stop by and see what kind of conversations you had going on with other guests. I always find it interesting. I've seen you around for a while, that's why. But when I saw this setup with the echo, I wanted to try and help out because I want you to keep having a platform, and I feel like that echo is going to drive a lot of people away.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Did you hear that last guest who, because you ever heard that saying where people say the lion shall lay down with the lamb? Have you ever heard people say that?
I have. I think the main one that people use now, I don't know if he was an atheist or not, but a lot of atheists, they talk about like animal suffering as like a thing of.
Oh, yeah, that's a big topic right now.
But was that different than what he was asking?
Yeah, this guy, because when we're children, like typically passed down through tradition, people talk about, oh, this time period where the lion will lay down with the lamb. But it's a reference here to peace between Israel and the Gentile nations. And primarily it's reference to the return from Babylonian captivity. But the tradition is that individuals think of the lion laying down with the lamb, so they tell their children there's a coming time when the lion shall lay down with the lamb. The Jehovah Witnesses think that this is literal and that this will literally happen. But the point is that it's a tradition that's passed down, like that language, the lion with the lamb. And so that last guest, because he inherited that tradition when he was a child, he used to hear preachers on TV say the lion shall lay down with the lamb. And so when he actually opened his Bible, it doesn't say the lion with the lamb, it says the wolf shall live with the lamb. And so what he does is he says the Bible has actually been miraculously changed before our eyes.
That's wild. But we have so many manuscripts that disprove, like there's so much consistency with the ancient text that we do have access to.
I know.
So
I know. That's
what
what I've had like 3 conversations with him, and I try to tell him, and I try to change the topic, but that's all that he wants to talk about. So I'm like, at this point, I don't want to talk about that.
For sure. I mean, if you believe that the Bible has been corrupted, you might as well just become Muslim.
Right. And you know something too, well, Muslims have to look to the Bible to be true because it says that they have to look to the book that the Christians had.
Yeah, and then it's been corrupted, so it's kind of like, well, why would I look to it? Like,
can I share with you my thoughts on what they talk about, like, you know, the animal suffering, like the biggest answer that I could find?
Yeah, for sure. What do you got?
And I was just thinking about it. So, you know how, for example, like if you hate somebody, like the range can scale very greatly from what that hatred looks like. It can either be, you know, you can hate someone and still show them kindness, or you can hate someone and just separate yourself from them and not want to be around them. You can hate someone and purposely look for them and call them names. You can look for someone and unalive them.
Yeah.
Right. So the scale, the spectrum is huge. So the fact that mortality exists and you can unalive someone shows that the spectrum can range of suffering from the very minute end of the scale to the very extreme end of the scale.
That makes sense.
So I was thinking about that. I fell asleep and I was thinking about it while I was falling asleep, and I was like, man, I hope I remember that in the morning. And then I remembered it, and I was like, to me, that's the best answer I could find. And
what do you think of this? This is how I would explain it, but maybe you have you can find issue with it. I would say that when God made Adam, he gave Adam dominion, and dominion is a level of authority, and that's why he had dominion to name the animals. And so as a result of his sin, death entered the world through the fall of man, and that stain also corrupted the entirety of the material world. Like all of the universe is like decaying and falling, and so that's why the suffering that you would see with an animal is a result of man falling away from God. And that actually just points more towards the needing of Christ and his sacrifice in order to reunite all of us back to God to create like perfect harmony once again.
Possibly the only thing that I would find, like if I'm on the opposite end trying to argue against that, is because and it's kind of deep, not really, but you know, in Genesis, in the garden before the fall even took place, it said everything would produce after its kind, including trees. And the only way that a tree or a fruit produces after its kind is if the tree or the fruit itself passes away, and then you have the seed, and then the seed goes into the ground, and then it comes alive.
Interesting. Okay.
So the concept of unalive was introduced into the world prior to the fall of Adam. The difference is that so the fact that Adam was only taken away from the tree which could give him life shows that he was created a mortal being. And through what it appears would be is continuous eating of this tree, not just a one-time thing and then live forever, but like a continuous eating. Through that, his life would be prolonged where he could live forever. And so it appears to me that that tree was not available for animals, and therefore the only creation which would endure forever would actually be man.
Interesting. So sin. So in that worldview, does that mean sin did lead to death?
Well, spiritual and physical. Physical because they were removed from the tree of life, and therefore Adam and Eve and all their descendants, it's impossible to live forever on this earth. And so in that way, yes, but also spiritual in a sense of Adam and Eve became unalive spiritually, and all that means is just they needed to be forgiven. So through their sin, spiritual unalive, just for TikTok terms, spiritual unalive was introduced into the world, because prior to that, there was no unalive and there was no sin in the world. And as time went on, more laws needed to be introduced to regulate sin, because if God didn't make a law against a lot of different things, then that means you could do evil and it not be considered evil, because if there's no law against it, you're allowed to do it.
Kind of like, because God said that like hell wasn't made for humans, it was made for the angels that fell away, right? And so like we weren't supposed to go to hell, but we do now as a result of sin. If that's the, if there's someone dies, what I would say in a state where like they're not believing in Christ. Because I think is it Jude? So, where is it? And I think even Jesus makes mention of it. Like hell was made for, like the fallen angels. It wasn't made for us, right?
Well, Matthew 25 says that it was a fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the fact that it was prepared for the devil and his angels, I think that doesn't necessarily mean, possibly because it was prepared for the devil and his angels, but then mankind goes there also. So was it prepared for them too? I think the point is who sinned first, the devil and his angels. And so it's saying it was prepared for them because they sinned before humans. So technically maybe not saying it wasn't prepared for humans. Because maybe it was too, but I think the order is that it was for those who sinned.
But humans had already fallen by the time Jesus said that, right? He already made mention of it. So I think it's interesting that he didn't mention it was made for fallen angels and fallen people. It was made for fallen angels, even in the time of when he was mentioning it to human beings. So I don't know, it just makes sense that and I would feel like, depending on the angelic theology, depending on where you look, it would seem that because over time there's a lot of theologians that have written about angels, and they kind of make mention of angels having a different way of learning or knowing things than humans and our intellectual capacity. And so it makes sense that their choice is more solidified in their understanding of it. Whereas in humans, we kind of have to be taught through processes. We come to know God through a process. It's not just instantaneous knowledge of him, throughout our life.
Right. You believe Jesus is deity?
Yeah, I believe in a Trinity. Yeah, I'm a Trinitarian.
Oh, okay. Did you want to see an interesting verse that might, because it helps back up what you say in a way. Have you ever read this passage right here, where it says Jesus grew in wisdom?
I only see verse 51 on the screen.
You don't see 52?
Oh yeah, 52 it is right there. It's cut off a little on the left. But yeah, I see it. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with him, or with God and man.
Right. So you see though how it says he grew in wisdom? Mm-hmm. So we know before he was born that he knew all things, because Psalm says God's knowledge is infinite. So what that shows is that deity was placed in a human body, and as his brain grew, his knowledge grew. And at 12 years old, he's smarter than all the teachers, because he's asking them questions in the temple that stumped them. And we know for sure, because it says his wisdom grew. So someone might say, well, how did his wisdom grow if he already knows everything? Well, the fact that he entered into a human body and had a human brain shows that as his brain grew, his knowledge grew up to the point that in Jesus's ministry, his disciples on multiple occasions says, we know that you know all things.
Yeah. Like, do you believe in like the hypostatic union?
People use terminology and I don't know
So
like the definition they're referring to.
So Jesus is both fully God and fully man. And so
Yeah,
like,
I believe
that would tie into like the human aspect, like the wisdom growing and stuff like that, even though he's still divine.
I would say the thing that's divine about him would be his spirit, and then the thing that's human about him is his flesh and blood.
Okay.
So I would say that because his flesh and blood didn't exist before he was born, but his spirit did.
And you don't believe like Jesus is the Father, right?
No, I have many debates with people on here.
Okay, cool.
About that.
So I guess we're probably on the same page then when it comes to that.
Yeah, one passage I always go to is 1 John 2, where it says right here, he says, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ. And so this word, when it mentions two individuals saying one is with another, that like it's not saying we have an advocate between us and the Father. It's saying we have an advocate alongside the Father. So there's a body next to the Father. And the question is there a spirit in this body? It's not a body without a spirit. And so you have a body next to the Father that has a spirit in it. So, and it's not the Father. I mean, otherwise you have the Father in a body and outside of the body. But
I think it's most obvious at Jesus' baptism, honestly. Like, they're all three right there.
Right.
Like, I don't know how you get around that. Like, all three of them are right there, literally, like.
Right. And I bring it up, too, and say, are you saying that Jesus said, this is me in whom I'm well pleased, and then he descended upon himself? And they say yes. And it's like, okay.
It's like the talking head videos on TikTok where like you're talking one and then you like turn left and then turn the camera back on to talk to yourself and to make it look like you're having a different conversation, but it's just you.
Right. And another question I ask is because Jesus went to Hades, it says that very clearly in Acts chapter 2, Jesus went to Hades, which is the realm where all who pass away go. And so if he went to Hades, where was the Father? And they say, well, the Father is omnipresent, so he's in all places at once. But that wouldn't even make sense, because how could he go to Hades if he's already there?
Yeah, how can you? Yeah. So actually, I'm curious. I do have a question now. Who do you think Jesus preached to when he went there? Was it every soul in history, or was it a particular group of people only?
Well, I think that I don't understand 1 Peter 3:20 the way that other individuals do. Okay. And I'll pull it up and explain the way that I explained it, because that's where individuals get this from.
Okay.
It's 1 Peter 3:20. And it says, is it small on the screen? Is it cut off?
It's cut off on the left. There you go. That's better. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So Christ also suffered for the sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to lifelessness in the body, but made alive in the spirit. So that's reference to his burial and his resurrection. And then it says, after being made alive, it says he went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits, to those who were disobedient long ago, when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was preparing and it was being built. So the question is when did Jesus, this is actually, what translation is this? This is actually not a good one. NIV. Okay. I downloaded a plugin on my program so that way it didn't say like DEAF. It says like unalive and stuff like that. I downloaded an add-on on Chrome. Okay. But yeah, I'm reading this. I'm like, this is not, it's all the NIV. So my bad. That makes sense. So right here where it says, being put to lifelessness in the flesh, but quickened by the spirit, there's a bit reference to his burial and resurrection. And then it says, by which also he went and preached to the spirit. So the question is by which, what is that a reference to? So I believe that's a reference to the spirit. So through the spirit, he preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometimes were disobedient. And the question is, I would say, is when did he preach? And I would say the when is answered right here. When the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah while the ark was preparing. So it's my belief that Jesus preached through the Spirit during Noah's generation through Noah's preaching. So I believe that that's what this is a reference to.
So you don't think he went at a point in time after his crucifixion, but that it's referencing way long ago before the flood.
Right, like because the same Spirit that spoke
is eternal.
Right. And so I would say that Christ preached to the world by the Spirit, but it was through Noah, and that it takes it back to that generation, which is why it mentions the ark. And then it fasts forward and mentions the like figure about baptism in the present generation that they were in.
So what was he doing in Hades? What did he go there for?
Well, I don't know exactly what he was doing, but it wouldn't necessarily make sense for him to go down. Like, could he have been teaching down there? According to Luke 16, you could speak across the gulf and other individuals hear you, because you have the rich man and torment speaking to Abraham, having a back and forth conversation. So it could have been, it could have been that Jesus went down there and taught them, but I have no clue what significance this would play, because Jesus, if he went to Hades and is preaching to those who were in torment, it wouldn't do them any good. And why does it only mention specifically those who were disobedient during one generation?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Because I always thought of it as, those souls didn't have the ability to accept Christ because there was a foreshadowing of Christ, but his sacrifice hadn't yet occurred. So this was their opportunity through like God's justice for them to actually come to believe, and they had an opportunity there to be saved through the sacrifice that he just united all of mankind to God for, if they were to believe in him. So I looked at it as more of like a thing of, it's more of a like justice and mercy kind of thing going on for those that, never had an opportunity prior, because like God created them, right? But he created them prior to Christ's sacrifice. So it almost makes sense in terms of God being love, merciful, justice, by giving them that opportunity to believe in him, because they hadn't had the chance to. But then I guess would that count for everyone that lives today that, is in like China that may have never heard the gospel? I don't know. Yeah, so maybe there's problems with that.
Yeah, and even then, why would they go to torment first if God's merciful, knowing who would accept what? Why would he not just allow them to be in paradise? So that wouldn't make sense either. And there's a gulf fixed in between the two, so it says you can't pass even if you want to.
Right. I guess that was the difference with like Abraham's. So how do you think there's a difference between Abraham's bosom and hell, or are they the same place?
Well, hell is a reference to Hades in some places, but also hell is translated from the word Gehenna, which is a reference to what will take place on Judgment Day. So it says torment is pictured as a place of fire, but then it pictures Gehenna as a term used for Judgment Day, like how individuals go to paradise and they rest, which in the case of Jesus going on the cross, he said, today you'll be with me in paradise. That's not heaven he's speaking about, because Jesus didn't go to heaven when he passed away. He went to Hades, and Hades is not in heaven. Acts chapter 2 makes it clear. It says David is in Hades. He did not ascend into heaven. Right. So Hades is not heaven. So the fact that Jesus told the thief, you'll go with me to paradise today, shows that Jesus and the thief both went to Hades, not heaven. So the fact, though, that hell is used in reference to the grave, and both the righteous and the unrighteous go to Hades, right? Because that's where the compartment is in the separation between the righteous and the unrighteous. Mm-hmm. So in Hades, there's two compartments from Luke 16. What we see, there's comfort in Abraham's bosom, and then there's torment, which is pictured across the gulf in fire. And then there's terminology used specifically for Judgment Day, like Jesus mentions eternal life, and then he also mentions Gehenna.
So that's kind of actually that aligns really well with the imagery from like Dante's Divine Comedy, between like Inferno and then like Purgatorio and then Paradiso. I don't know if you're familiar with his like poetry from long time ago. No, I'm
not.
But like that kind of actually makes sense, where it's like they're like the same realm essentially, but like one layer is almost like, the way he represented it visually was like there were like depths of hell, and then at the very tip, like think of like looking into the edge, like down into a volcano. There's like the upper rim that's kind of like maybe like where you're talking about Hades, and then like the lower you go is like the tormenting part. So like there's like almost like a waiting area, and then like a burning area. So one's punishment and one's waiting for like a savior kind of thing.
Yeah, but what I understand this passage is it showing through preaching, right? What was Noah preaching? Noah was preaching salvation in water. That's what it says. They were saved by water. And the word by water here, do you search the Greek at all?
No, I don't speak Greek at all, so.
Okay, I don't speak it either, but I got used to my Bible program where I can search it. So you see here how it says by water?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 5, Peter uses same author, same Greek phrase. Where he says dia water, but look what it says here, standing out of the water and in the water. The earth was standing out of the water and in the water. So the translators translated it as in the water here, and I think that if they translated it the same way in 1 Peter 3:20, it would clear up a lot of confusion that individuals have. Because it's the same Greek phrase, dia water. It's just in 1 Peter 3:20, they put by water, and in 2 Peter 3:5, they put in the water.
Though, right?
Not this passage in 2 Peter 3:5.
No, but the other one,
right, and that's what I believe would make it.
I would say baptism's necessary for salvation. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree, and I believe that's exactly what this teaching is, because Noah, he was saved, and Noah was in the water, right? But he's in the ark. But because the ark's in the water, Noah is saved in the water by the ark. And so it says this is a like figure. Baptism saves us. So it's saying we're also saved in the water, but it's not by the ark we're saved in the water like Noah. It's by the resurrection of Jesus.
Yeah, for sure.
So I only brought that up because my understanding of this passage was that Christ preached through Noah salvation in the water by the ark. And today, Christ preaches through his disciples salvation in the water, but it's by his resurrection.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. That makes me think, too, now, like, do you think, this is totally off tangent, but it's just a thought that popped in my head. So if you think about how evil the generation was during the time when the flood happened, and you compare like the world today, I've heard it even said sometimes that the world we live in right now is even more evil and sinful than the generation where the flood happened.
I don't know about that, because it says only Noah and his family were saved. And it says, look what it says about everyone else. God saw the wickedness of man was very great in the earth, that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So if God actually didn't save Noah, then it appears
he wiped out all the people, and he started over basically with Noah, right? He's like, okay, everyone's so evil, we're gonna wipe everyone out. Noah's gonna be saved. We're gonna start fresh, and then the salvation story continues, right, from after the flood. And so all the people that were so evil that God took them out with the flood, I'm thinking that even today's generation is more evil than those people. And I feel like it makes sense because of how much more access we have to sin in our connected societies through technology than even they would have had back then. And you see how we have higher levels of abortion and impurity, the way people dress, the things that people do for it just seems like there's way more sin now than there was even back then, because there's more opportunity to sin, I feel with technology.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I just
wonder what kind of wrath we have to look forward to, as a world, you know what I mean? Because of how evil this planet's become.
Well, for those, Jesus said whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. So we know that the condemnation, the wrath of God is not against those who obey him. It says Jesus will save those eternally who obey him in Hebrews 5:9. So if we're speaking in terms of eternally, God has no wrath against the individual saint, but there is such thing in the Bible, and we see it all over the place, as kingdom judgments. And even if you're innocent and there's a kingdom judgment upon your nation, you're going to be affected.
So what do you think about our country with all the abortion we allow and divorce and fornication and all these things that we don't crack down on? Because there used to be, I didn't know that. Did you know that in America there used to be fornication laws? It was illegal, and I
believe some states have it where you have to have a reason for the divorce. Whereas
no fault divorce states versus you need a reason kind of thing.
Yeah, and some states require both parties in agreement, whereas in like California is a one-party state where you only need the consent of one party to divorce, which is kind of ironic because California has a two-party recording state, so you can't record someone without their permission. So it's like, but you can divorce them without their permission.
Yeah. And you can terminate your pregnancy too. You know, it's like they don't have a choice. The baby doesn't have a choice. But I don't know. I just feel like even looking at our nation, right, as Christian as we think it is, there's so much that we allow legally that's just like I would think is abhorrent to God.
Yeah, and but that's the government, right? So it's not in local assemblies of baptized believers that they're preaching from the pulpit saying these things are okay. It's just the fact that is First Peter, it says
Some
all
churches,
over the place.
Some churches you go there and they're marrying couples that are, or shouldn't be,
right. Well, I've never seen. I'm a member of the Church of Christ, and so I've never seen individuals be involved in that. I've seen other assemblies be involved in some stuff they shouldn't be involved in. So, like you're saying, some assemblies, you just have to be aware of what's going on there, what's being taught.
For sure.
But the reason I bring that out though is because in First Peter he says that as Christians we live among the Gentiles, and so that shows that the government passes laws that Christians should individually stand against if it contradicts what God says we should be doing.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyways, I don't have much else, but and I don't know if you have any more guests that are trying to come up. I don't want to hog the stage.
No, there's just let's see. Do you assemble with anyone in your community right now?
I go to a Catholic church.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you believe an individual is born into this world spiritually alive or spiritually unalive?
Well, I do believe in original sin.
But do you believe an individual is born into this world spiritually alive or spiritually unalive?
I mean, I guess how do you mean? Because technically they're alive, right? Because I would say like the human is composed of a soul and a body, and so like
they're physically alive, but what's their spiritual condition?
Well, I guess I would say unalive because they would need to be baptized to become alive.
Okay, and so if we can keep that line of thought, but before I continue that line of thought, in the process of being alive and becoming unalive, can you become unalive if you're first not alive?
I'm not sure. I just feel like if you have to be baptized, if we both agree on like baptism's necessary, then you would have to be in a spiritual unalive state to become alive spiritually if we believe that baptism is required.
No, I agree with that concept. The question is when do you become unalive? Because I have a Bible verse in mind that I'm going to bring up. But before I get to the Bible verse and then talk about that topic, if you have a moment, I was just asking a question. And I think you would logically answer this question. But because you believe you're born spiritually unalive, at least you hold that mindset presently, that it's causing some conflict in your answer to this question. Because in the process of being alive, and then what about, because you know what slew means if you slew somebody? Mm-hmm. Do you slew somebody who's unalive or do you slew somebody who's alive?
Yeah, they'd have to be alive in order to be slain.
Okay. So that'll help with the concept. Because in Romans 7, have you ever read Romans 7?
Yeah, but I don't have it memorized, so I wouldn't know like off the top of my head.
Okay, so here I have it on the screen. So here's this verse. He says, I was alive once without the law. Did I freeze up?
You did.
Oh man, how do I fix that?
Your background's still moving, but your camera isn't.
I know.
Maybe, can you turn your camera off and then turn it back on? Maybe that'll reset it.
Possibly. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can switch the camera. It's not even letting me switch the camera. Okay, let me try to turn it off and turn it back on. I haven't restarted my computer in a few days, so I think that might be an issue too.
Mm.
Yeah, because let's see. You can hear me, but you can't see me, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So we might... Oh, there we go. Nice. Cool.
Yeah, you're back.
Thanks for waiting on that. Yeah, I'm back. So in Romans 7, he says, I was alive without the law, but when the commandment came, sin revived and I became unalive. So the question is if my camera froze again. So I guess I'll just have to have this conversation with you, and then maybe we can pick up on another night to maybe finish it. But he says he was alive and then he became unalive. But we know he's not talking about physical life here, because he's contrasting it with the condition he entered into. So, and then he even mentions down here, for sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me. And like you mentioned, you can't be slain unless you're alive. And he's not talking physically. It didn't physically slew him because he's physically alive when he wrote this. So it has to be a spiritual condition. But the question is he actually says he was alive before he was slain.
I was alive without the law. He was alive without the law. Which law is he referring to? Is that like the
of
Levitical
Moses?
law?
Yeah, the law of Moses, because he mentions right here, I had not known sin but by the law, for I had not known lust except the law said, thou shalt not covet. And he's referencing the 10 Commandments.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I became unalive. Which commandment? Jesus?
No, the commandment, the one he mentioned specifically was the thou shalt not covet.
So he was alive before he shouldn't covet, and then when he learned of not coveting, he became unalive?
Right. And that's what I would say, is that he reached an age of understanding, and once he realized that he transgressed, at that moment he became unalive.
So why would they circumcise infants into the covenant?
Because it was a commandment for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for their descendants.
Right, because I always understood it as baptism replaced circumcision. And so like it made sense that the same way a baby was saved through circumcision with like
My bad. I don't know what happened. You said that you thought that circumcision was like the changing from baptism, from circumcision to
baptism. Baptism replaced circumcision. And so and then they would circumcise infants in the old covenant as a way of bringing them into the covenant. And so I figured if it was being replaced, it would just logically follow that like families would continue to baptize their children the way like they used to circumcise their children. So like I don't know why that would have changed. Because the babies didn't have a conscious realization to become Jews. They were like born into it. So I figured like the same would be family. If you're born into a Christian family, then you're part of a Christian family, and that's the new covenant. So it's still a covenantal thing.
Right, but did you know that the conditions set forth, the prerequisites were different? Like according to circumcision, you had to be a male. Women couldn't get circumcised, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that women could get baptized shows the prerequisites different. The prerequisite was you had to be 8 days old, whereas then according to the prerequisite for baptism, it says, like, for example, here's Philip and eunuch. He said, here is water. What doth hinder me to be baptized? Meaning, what's stopping me? And then Philip said, so here's the prerequisite. If you believe with all your heart, you may. So it's not prerequisite to be a certain amount of days old. You have to be old enough to understand and believe the information presented.
Yeah, because I took it as like, the circumcision was for the covenant with the Jewish people, and then the Gentile is incorporated into the new covenant. So that would at least answer the whole, girls being baptized thing, because it's like Jew and Gentile. So now there's also a second type of person that wasn't involved in that covenant. So that would, I guess, make sense for like, women being baptized too with boys. And then But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's. I mean, it makes sense, that verse, but I don't know if that's like applied to everyone.
Well, even here it says, "In whom ye are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, and putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ, buried with him in baptism." So it's mentioning baptism, but look what it says here: "Wherein also you are risen with him through the faith of the operation of God, who hath raised him from the unalive." So it's saying that they were actually buried and risen through faith, which shows that they understood the information and the instruction, which is why they submitted to it.
Okay. So what age do you think a human is considered capable of making that decision?
I don't
Like,
know what
generally
age.
speaking.
I'd say it's different for a lot of people because it's your mental state, right? There's some people who are mentally limited for their entire life and actually never reach an age of understanding between good and evil. So like Deuteronomy 1 mentions children, and it says children, what is it? Deuteronomy 1:39, where it says, "Moreover, your little ones, which he said should be a prey, and your children, which in that day had no knowledge between good and evil."
Mhm.
So it says here,
Yeah, 'cause-
children.
So like where I go to church, like we teach that like around the age of 7 is what we call the age of reason. That's like where like a human knows right from wrong, and like they can be held to like the standard of, you know, knowing if they're sinning or not sinning, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it's different. I know I was 19 when I first came across this information, and I knew for sure by 19 that I was old enough that I needed to obey this information. But have you ever noticed that though? And then I'd like to, on another night when my camera, I think I just have to restart my computer. I think it's been a while. So it's like overloading. But it says here, "I was alive without the law." Have you ever done a study? Do you have an electronic Bible?
I just have physical Bible.
You have a physical one. Okay.
I mean,
I would
I guess I can have. I have a computer, so I'm sure I have access to a digital one if I pull it up.
You should download eSword.
Let me see.
eSword is an electronic Bible. You have a Windows or a Mac?
Windows.
Windows, and it's free. eSword is free, and it's electronic Bible. It's the only Bible that I actually use for studying on electronic devices. I just have this on Google Chrome so that way guests can see it. But I would search the word youth and do a study on youth, and you'll actually find that God holds individuals accountable since their youth age. Like Genesis, it says, let me.
That makes sense though, right? Because like a human, like you're not super old before you know like stealing is bad. You know, like even a lot of children understand the concept of like this is wrong and they know why it's wrong. It's just like what age specifically, I guess that is a variable. But I would say like a general standard would be probably around 7 years old is when you can expect your child to know this is bad, this is good. Don't do bad, do good, you know?
Well, here's Genesis 8:21, and it says this: "The imagination of man's heart is evil." But look what he says. He doesn't say from birth. He says from his youth.
Yeah, so youth. So I guess what age is youth?
Well, I know that the age that an individual should be baptized, there's a lot that comes into consideration with it. Like, because in the local assembly, there should be elders. And if somebody's baptized, then they become under the subjection of the elders. So like if the parents or if the elders see the baptized believer commit a sin, then they can go directly to them and pull them aside. So they don't need permission from the parents. So it has to be in an age where the child is no longer under the subjection to their parents. And then when we learn when Jesus was 12, it actually says at 12 years old that Jesus went to Nazareth and he was subject to Joseph and Mary. So he was 12 years old. And it mentions that he was subject to them. So to me, I would say even 12 years old for a lot of individuals is way too young for individuals. But someone in the comment section said this, but James 1 says this. It shows the process. And it says, "Every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, brings forth lifelessness." So that's the moment you need to be born again. but this comes through knowledge. Like, just because, like, because you're saying like a 7-year-old could desire to get baptized, but just because somebody desires something doesn't mean that it's good for them to do in that moment. It could be good for them to do in the future, but maybe not in that moment. Like, for example, a 7-year-old might want to drive a car, right?
Right,
And
but if we both agree that baptism is necessary, why would we withhold that?
well, the same.
I guess I don't understand the contention with like baptizing your children. Like I can understand. Like, yeah, I don't actually. I can't. I don't. I don't understand why that's an issue. It's
What
like
do you see here? He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved.
Mhm.
So belief is a prerequisite before being baptized.
Right, but you had said, right, when you said like the children are under the authority of their parents.
Right.
So that same authority they're under is what the same understanding we would say with why the baptism of their children is considered valid, because they're under their parents' authority, and so through the parents' faith, it's valid.
Well, do you see? Let me pull up this passage. It's Matthew 14:21, and this might help provide some insight. Matthew 12. Now you can't see it on the screen. What's going on with that? Chrome.
Yeah, what's going on?
I have no clue what. Oh,
Camera
man.
went down. Now your browser went down.
Yeah, but I'll just state this, that in Matthew 14:21, you remember when Jesus fed the multitudes, and it said he fed, was it 5,000 besides women and children?
Mhm.
So we know that the scriptures know how to mention men, women, and children, right?
Well, I mean, that's one example. I don't know if that creates a rule.
No, but I was just mentioning that we know the scriptures know how to mention men, women, and children, right? Because we have men, women, and children mentioned in one passage, right here.
Yeah, just like boys were circumcised, and because you could circumcise a female, right? Some countries do that. We just say no, you shouldn't do that. But so it is. There's a specification that it's for boys. It's a male thing.
Well, do you see here how it says men, women, and children?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we know the scriptures know how to mention the men and women, and then when we actually read about who was baptized, it actually only says men and women, and it excludes women, or it excludes children. Like here, man, it keeps shutting off. Why is it? Okay, so it says
so men and women
believers.
couldn't refer to like gender, like boys and girls, men and women, male and female. Like, does saying men and women specifically have to mean adults?
Well, those in their youth age or more, but the youth being in your youth indicates that you are no longer under the submission of your parents, where you can take care of yourself. And
wouldn't that mean you're a grown up?
No, because a youth can refer to a young man.
Okay.
A young man or a young woman. Like, it's the same term used here in Acts 2, where he says your young men shall see visions.
Mm-hmm. Your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions. So does that mean daughters aren't young? They're like old women, and then only the young guys? So like women of all ages, and then only young guys?
No, well, it says here your sons and your daughters, so it just indicates your descendant, right? Your following generation. So,
but it means,
and then it mentions your young men.
Means children, right? So it's only kids.
No, sons and daughters here is not reference to children age-wise. It means children as in like your offspring. It has nothing to do with the age of them. It just means that they came forth from you. It's your offspring.
Oh, because in the last verse you said men and women reference not children. But then now when we look at sons and your daughters, that also doesn't mean children. So like there's like a different standard being applied.
Well, it tells you who the sons are, who it said would prophesy.
Yeah.
And it says that that's specifically a reference to young men.
So if a young man sees a vision, but an old man has a dream, is there a difference?
Well, the young man would be somebody who's older than a child. This is the same term for the youth.
But it's not referencing that. I'm just wondering, like, because it says sons and daughters, and then it doesn't mention daughters, but it mentions two ages of males, which is young men and old men. In that same
Well, it mentions down here my handmaidens, and that would include the offspring.
Okay, so that's the woman component. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really seeing the exclusion of like parents as kids, like parents and their kids. And again, what's the issue with it? I guess I don't see like the immorality of if we know baptism's is a gift from God and like we're saved like through our faith in Christ, why can't the faith of the parents like having authority over the children be like a valid consideration in the eyes of God, especially if it's such a necessary thing? Like I feel like this is a good thing. We should be wanting to baptize everyone regardless of their age, because of
but not
it's a requirement.
No, not regardless of their age, because it says here, what's stopping me from being baptized? And he said, if you believe with all your heart, you may. So it's not a decision you can force someone else into doing. You can lead them to that decision, but the fact that he says,
so are there
if
people that haven't been baptized that you think are saved?
No, there's individuals who enter into this world who are alive spiritually, like Paul said in Romans 7. Mm-hmm. And so there's no need for them to be born again. Baptism would do nothing for them except trick them into getting baptized. And what would happen is they're already in a life condition, so baptism would do nothing. And therefore, when they actually do reach that age of understanding and sin, they become spiritually unalive. But because they were tricked into being baptized and they didn't understand what was taking place, that they actually need to be born again, so they never get baptized. So really, it's just unbaptized believers, because belief is a prerequisite for baptism.
But that wouldn't that mean that children need? Oh, I guess we touched upon that earlier, where I was talking about how like death entered the world through sin, but you don't think that. You think that it was around before sin. But didn't you say you were spiritually unalive due to sin? Like
no,
as a result of Adam?
No, Adam became unalive through sin, and sin entered into the world. But if sin passed along and created every single offspring as unalive, then we would not even find Paul alluding to this even being a possibility, where he says, I was alive once.
So Paul was alive, because that's in reference to Christ, right? When Paul
this is a reference to before he even gained knowledge of Christ.
Oh, so he was alive and then died spiritually even before his conversion.
Right, and then that's why he needed to be born again.
Okay. I don't know. I still don't see like where I don't know. I guess I don't see where you go from a state of being alive to losing it to then regaining it. I feel like it's like you're always in a state of not having it, and then you're born through the waters, like with Christ's sacrifice and baptism.
But then, so what we could do is give you time then, because what we mentioned previously is you said you believe you're born into this world spiritually unalive. I showed this passage, and it clearly says, and you even yourself admitted you can't be slain unless you're alive. And that's what he says. Sin taking occasion by the commandment deceived me, and by it slew me. So he was alive when he was slain. And this isn't physical. This is spiritual. And he tells us specifically, I was alive, and this isn't physical, this is spiritual, because he became unalive and he was slain. So the question that I would have is, if he was born spiritually unalive, then why would he say that he was actually alive and then spend time to write about the process of him becoming unalive if he was actually conceived that way and never actually alive in the first place?
So does that mean that there's some humans that don't need Jesus to be saved?
No.
Because if let's say a child who is spiritually alive before their first sin and they pass away in that state, they go to heaven, right? Because they're spiritually alive and they didn't need to rely on Christ's sacrifice because they were always alive. They never once needed to rely on Jesus because they never fell into being unalive spiritually.
Well, it says here in 1 Corinthians 15, he says that the resurrection comes through Christ. So anyone who passes away needs Jesus, because without Jesus, they would not be raised.
Right. But that would also apply to the spiritually alive kids.
I know, that's what I mean, because you said that spiritually alive kids, they don't need Jesus, but that's not true, because a spiritually alive child who passes away still needs Jesus, because it's through Jesus that they're going to resurrect.
But if they're spiritually alive, why would they need Jesus?
To resurrect.
Jesus, yeah, but that's because of our sin, right? Like Jesus covers our sin. That's the whole point of his sacrifice. So
No, because
if
you
they
can
don't have
come.
sin where they haven't fallen spiritually, then they wouldn't need a savior because they're saved.
They
They're
would,
spiritually
because
alive.
they couldn't go to heaven. You don't go to heaven when you pass away. That's the whole point of the resurrection.
Right, but they're spiritually alive. So like they don't need a savior if they're spiritually alive.
They do, because they're going to be what? You think they're going to be stuck in Hades forever, away from the presence of God?
No, I feel like sin is what separate like so Adam and Eve were like in union with God, and then sin separated man from God, and then Christ's sacrifice is what united humans back to God. And so you need to rely on Christ's sacrifice to be reunited with God, which is like to be in heaven with God. But like if you're born spiritually alive and you pass away before you become spiritually unalive, then you're spiritually alive. It means you're in heaven. It means you don't need Jesus because you were fine before you. Because like it makes like if you're born spiritually alive and then you fall into spiritual unalignment, that's when you rely on Christ to become alive again. But
Yeah,
like
spiritually alive.
the phase before you become unalive, it's the same. So do you think that the spiritual alignment prior to baptism is the same spiritual alignment
As after baptism?
Yeah, so there's three periods of time, right? So I'm born and I'm spiritually alive,
Right.
and then I commit my first sin, I'm spiritually unalive, and then I baptized and I'm spiritually alive again. So
Right.
those are 3 time frames. So let's look at the first time frame, spiritual unalivement. The second time frame is unalivement, and then the third time frame is alivement again after baptism. So is 1 and 3 the same type of spiritual alivement?
The difference is that I would say yes, that you're in a safe condition in both of those cases, but I would say no also, because the first case you're in a safe condition because you don't have knowledge, and then once you gain knowledge, you maintain that safe condition through exercise of the commandments.
Right, but that means the spiritual alivement in the first condition when you're first born versus being reborn, if they're different, then the first spiritual alignment you still need baptism in order to become spiritually alive the way you are after baptism through Christ's sacrifice.
No, because it's based on knowledge. So children have no knowledge between good and evil. Do you think that an 8-day-old baby can have the same knowledge and faith in God that a 20-year-old man who gets baptized can have the same faith and knowledge in God?
No.
Right. And what separates the two? Just the knowledge, right?
Their conscious awareness, yeah.
Right. And so that's what I would state. And I would love to, because I'd like talking to you, man. And I'm so happy that you came on here and helped me too at the very beginning. I'll be forever grateful for that. But for sure. I would love to hear, maybe if you do some studying on this, because he says I was alive without the law once. So this would be more in line with the reasoning that I'm presenting. Okay. The fact that the process shows Paul says I was alive, then I became unalive. Well, we know that Paul actually became alive during his baptism, because that's what he says in Colossians 2, where he says, wherein also you are risen with him through the faith and operation of God who raised him from the unalive. And so he mentions this process. Well, this might be a better one. Romans 6, where he actually includes himself in it, where he says we are buried with him by baptism into lifelessness, that like Christ was raised up from the unalive, we also should walk in newness of life. So Paul says that he was born again during baptism. And then in the next chapter, Romans 7,
I think you and I agree on the whole, like everything except the age.
Well, do you think an 8-day-old baby is going to need to be baptized?
I think every human being needs Jesus. And I think that you receive Christ's sacrifice through baptism. That's how we're like initially justified. And the only difference is I believe that the parents' faith and the parents having dominion over the child is what validates that baptism. But your standard is that your conscious awareness is what validates it, not the faith of the parents. So I think that's our only difference, and everything that follows, I think we're actually in agreement with.
Do you, because you're saying that the faith of the parents, maybe we could pick this up on the next time, because I enjoy talking with you. Because there are no examples where we have the example of a faith of a parent concerning baptism, that they baptize their child or their infant on account of the parent's faith. And I understand the examples are given. It says household, but in Hebrews chapter 11, it uses the same Greek word for household, and there's not a single child in the household, which shows that the term household can be used to actually reference descendants from him and not include babies. So like it says, Noah prepared an ark to the saving of his household. That's the same Greek word used elsewhere for like individuals, whole households were baptized. And all of Noah's children were old enough to be married. They had wives. So that shows that in and of itself, just because household is used, or a person's whole household was baptized, doesn't demand infants to be involved.
Well, it doesn't cast them out either. So it's kind of one of those ambiguous sentences, right? So like, it could mean it's like the thief on the cross, right? Like, we don't know the thief wasn't baptized. Scripture doesn't say that, but everyone assumes he wasn't baptized. What if he was baptized? The Bible doesn't say he wasn't. So I think it's one of those situations where like it can go either way and the Bible isn't clear.
Well, I would state this, that if we didn't have information elsewhere that how old Noah's family members were that got on the ark, and say this is all that we had, according to the argument that household demands infants to be included, it would say Noah, being warned of God and the things not seen, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house. Individual would say, look, Noah saved him and his infants. But because we have information presented elsewhere, we know that his household didn't include infants. So I would state that.
I think it's just relevant because it's referencing, like, the important thing isn't that it's Noah's, like, the people that were involved. It was the act of the water saving, like that symbolism that's being connected to baptism.
But all of the individuals who were saved in water by the ark in that case were old enough to understand what was taking place.
Yeah, I think that's just coincidence, so I don't think that's like a rule.
If this said the Philippian jailer, being warned of God, moved with fear and was baptized, he and all his household, would you say that demands infants?
No.
Okay, so that's what I mean, though. That's what we do have recorded elsewhere.
I don't think it does demand, and I don't think it doesn't demand. Like, I don't think it negates infants, and I don't think it condones infants. I think it's ambiguous. So, like, for instance, so from my position, that's why I tend to look at like history along with the Bible, but that's not how a lot of people look at it, right? They go, oh, if I can't find it fully within the Bible, like in a way to connect it, then like they don't accept it. So I'm not even trying to go that route. But I do think that the earliest Christians, you do see the practice of that. And so that's why I think that the understanding of including babies isn't necessarily explicitly found in Scripture, which is why I don't think that necessitates infant baptism by saying household. But I do think that historically it's evident that is how it was practiced.
But according to the text here, I understand that historically, yeah, we see in like the 2nd century, 3rd century, we see it prominent that they're baptizing their children, young children and babies. But just from reading the text, because the goal is to do what the apostles said, and we see like, here is water, what's stopping me from being baptized? And he says, if you believe, you may. So just every time that I read, especially concerning baptism, it always places an emphasis on the person who's being baptized and their understanding of what's taking place. So I think even 1 Peter 3 says the same thing, where it says that when you're baptized, it said it's actually the answer of a good conscience toward God. And some translations say it's an appeal of a good conscience from God. So actually saying that baptism is when you gain the good conscience. But even this shows that the conscience of the individual is involved during the baptism. So that's what I mean, though. Just all the passages that I read about baptism taking place, it says that the person understands what's going on.
Yeah, and I actually agree with that. I think the difference is that I just consider that it's the parent's consciousness and them having the authority over the child is what validates it. So I'm not saying like it, I guess that's the difference, right? The difference is like, I agree with the conscious element of accepting it, but I also believe that the parent can do that on behalf of their child. because of the authority they have over their child. So I think that's where the validation comes from. So I'm not denying the conscious awareness aspect of it. I actually agree with that. I just think that the difference is it doesn't have to come directly from the baby, because the parents is what confers that conscious faith onto the child, which I think is proper for a Christian family. You know, like, why wouldn't the parents want their children to be a part of the Christian? So does that mean the parents are Christians and then the child isn't a Christian until they reach a certain age, and then they become a Christian later? Like,
I would state that, because Jesus said to be his disciple, you have to continue in his word. And so since children aren't continuing in the word, they're learning the word, so that way once they're old enough, they can understand it and continue in it. But the fact that they're just children, they're not continuing in the doctrine.
Yeah, I feel like it's more fitting that a family is like a Christian family. You know, I think that's what, I don't know. It just makes more sense, especially with the continuation out of how God operated in the old covenant, foreshadowing the new, and then Jesus establishing the new one. I don't feel like there's that as much change as like we see nowadays. Like, I think there's still like a very, family driven aspect to the faith, except that the tribe has just been expanded. It's now between Jew and Gentile, right? So the Christian gospel message is offered to everyone. It's not just like the specific people to this old covenant system.
And then I guess before we end this, could I ask you 2 questions?
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. I appreciate talking with you. So you think baptism would do good to somebody who's spiritually alive?
No.
Okay, so that was the first question. So we know that. Okay, so I guess this is part of the first question. Does it take knowledge for a person to become spiritually unalive?
It's not. So the simple yes or no answer is I'm going to say no, but that's because of but I would have to elaborate on like the original sin aspect, like the falling of Adam, and like humans pass away as a result of sin. We don't live forever, but then I guess that's a whole different conversation. But then I think that like the culpability aspect of consciousness does take effect later in life. For sure. I think that's obvious. That's evident through like conscious development in like an adolescent into, youth or adulthood or whatever. But I don't think that someone is born spiritually alive because of they're not immortal, right? Like, we don't see babies living forever, like they pass away. And so that's a result of sin. And I think that is evidence of original sin that exists in the world. And through Christ's sacrifice, the washing away of that sin is how we're justified through his sacrifice, and that's how we're saved. And I think that's even why you and I agree on baptism being necessary. I think the difference is, like I said, it's the age. It's not the consciousness aspect. It's not what it does. It's not that it's necessary. It's simply the age. And I think if it's that great of a gift that God's given us, Jesus himself has come here and shown us that this is what we're to do. I don't know why we would withhold that, even if it is a consciousness thing. Especially, like, I don't see why the parents can't confer.
Well, the same way that the commandment for the baptized believer, like 1 Thessalonians and 2 Thessalonians says, is to get a job. But if you baptize like you're saying, an 8-day-old, are you going to withhold a job from them?
Would I withhold a job? Yeah.
Because it says baptized believers to have jobs. Is getting a job a good thing?
We should work,
Right. And so would it be good to withhold a good thing from a 8-day-old?
No. But again, I think that's,
okay, so you'd have an 8-day-old working.
No, I wouldn't. I think that's like, it's evident though. Like, that's not. I don't think it's relevant to the conversation, I guess. Like, I think what it is it's a false equivalence. Like, I don't think that like.
What's a withholding of something good that the scripture says we should do? That was the equivalence I was trying to bring, is because both are commandments and both are good commandments. But just as I would state that the command to get a job would demand, knowledge, I would say that baptism falls under that same category.
Right, and I think it's just, I believe it's the parents that can confer that knowledge to the child that's theirs.
Okay, and then my second question was this, because if you need to be born again, then is it your belief that an infant who passes away, that it's possible for infants to go to torment?
I don't believe they go to hell, but I don't believe that they go to heaven.
So do you believe that they are what is that term,
Like some people say limbo. No, I wouldn't
no
say
annihilated.
No, I don't think souls are annihilated. I think they're eternal once they're created.
So you don't think that the souls of those individuals would enter into heaven on Judgment Day?
Well, I think Jesus says that, right? If you're not born of water and spirit, you cannot enter the kingdom of God.
So if Jesus on Judgment Day says enter into the kingdom of heaven, and then it says he'll say to those who disobeyed him, depart from me. So where would they go if they're not in his presence or departed from him?
So theologically, it's a concept where I guess you could say they are in heaven, but the experience is going to be different. So, for instance, I would say like a human soul that's in heaven or united in heaven is with God is going to experience a supernatural happiness, whereas an infant that passes away wouldn't be in hell, but they wouldn't be like in the kingdom, like in the way that another soul would experience it as unified through Christ's sacrifice, which we would get justification through baptism. So they would experience like the highest level of natural happiness, but not supernatural. So it's not a state of suffering, but it's not the same level of like what you would expect, say, in heaven. So it's kind of like this, it's still heaven, but it's like a different place. And that's how it's been theologically understood for a long time. And how do you pull, there's no verse for that. That's the thing, you know? So I think that argument is going to fall for, you know, a lot of people nowadays that rely on solely having like a very explicit, verse. So.
Well, hey, I appreciate talking with you. I think you talked with me now for like an hour and a half. And
yeah, for sure. I'm glad your audio got fixed.
Yeah, everything actually just froze up right now. The app's not working. It's saying that it disconnected. It's not connecting. My audio is all messed up. So I might just have to call it for tonight. But I appreciate you joining. And on in the morning times, I stream at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on my YouTube channel. We do a live study. Right now, we're going through the Book of Acts. So if any morning you're up or want to catch a rerun or something, there's some good dialogue. We got a lot of knowledgeable individuals in the chat, and it's a chat, so you're welcome to join.
For sure. Thank you. Yeah, I'll check it out if I'm around.
Yeah, and also send me the now we're friends. I'm gonna message you because I'd like to see some of the work that you did on just some of your voiceovers and stuff, and then I'd like to pick up this conversation. I feel like we got a firm base where we can build on, and then I would still love to know your thoughts, if possible, on Romans 7:9. So I don't know if somehow you might be able to, because you heard my perspective on it. So I'd like, rather than just forcing you to create a perspective on here, I'd rather you take a look at it, and when you get a chance, which is hopefully soon, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Right on. And my name's Jacob, by the way.
Hi, I'm Ken.
Ken. Right on. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Ken.
You too, Jacob.
All right, man. Well, I hope you have a nice night.
All right, you too. God bless.
Thank you. Bye. All right, y'all. Well, I don't know what's going on. My audio, my video, it's frozen up. It's freezing. I hope y'all have a nice night. Y'all are watching. Thank you, everybody joining. Mark, John 3:36. Charlene, what up? Thanks for joining. E Cruz, everyone on YouTube. I can't see it right now. My internet's frozen, so I can't even see who's on YouTube. I can see on my phone. Brian, Bella, Brent. Thank y'all for joining. Hello, what up? I know it's 11 o'clock. It's late at night right now. So my video camera stopped working. So I had that last guest though help me set up my audio. So everyone says good night. All right, y'all. Well, I'm going to log off. Hope everybody has a nice night. Thanks for joining. May God bless you in your search for truth, and pray that You know, God will lead you to the outcome of truth. The truth has already been revealed, so it's just our goal. What up, Jamie? Can I say hi to your dad? I will, Jamie. Yeah, he had a rough day today, so I'll let him know. I'll see him tomorrow, and I'll let him know. Hope you have a nice night, and thanks, Mark. And pray to God, because the truth's already been revealed, you know, and you're just trying to come to a knowledge of the truth that has already been revealed. And so we shouldn't just arrive at these crazy distant locations as to what truth is. We should be around the same area. And then once we're around the same area, it's like, hey, I see you over there. You know, this person, hey, I see you over there. You know, someone says, let's meet in the middle. Nah, we're not trying to meet in the middle, right? It's either I go over there, you come over here, or we're going to meet in the middle, because we're trying to find out what truth is, right? So we can sometimes narrow down the location as to where it is and how close we could be to it, and that's the goal, be as close as possible. So thank you all, and I'm going to restart my computer so that way we'll have this fixed for the morning time. So thank you, Michael. Appreciate you. All right, y'all. Well, hope you have a nice night, and we'll chat soon. Bye.